Thank you.
Thank you, Vivek and Loai, for taking us through Arya's journey so far, and thanks to Loai for sharing the wonderful dream. I hope it comes true. I would like to now invite on stage Mr. Vishal Dhawan and Mr. Prasad Ramani for an introduction of Arya's Syntonic project. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Vishal Dhawan, co-founder of Plan Ahead Wealth Advisors Private Limited. With an educational background in economics and an MBA in finance, Vishal has over 25 years of industry experience. He has held various positions at the Financial Planning Association, particularly in cross-border financial planning. Vishal was also the recipient of Ken Gillespie Legacy Fund Scholarship by Money Quotient, one of the leading life planning coaching firms globally in 2013. Under Vishal's leadership, his firm Plan Ahead received consecutive Best Investment Advisor Awards from 2016 to 2019 in the Outlook Money Awards and has secured the second runner-up position in the Plan Plus Global Awards Asia region for 2017 and 2018. Vishal is also the founder director of ARYA, the Association of Registered Investment Advisors. Mr. Prasad Ramani is the founder and chief product officer of Syntonic. He's passionate about empowering people to make better financial decisions using behavioral finance and technology. From serving as head of quant for a global family office, co-managing $1.4 billion, to building automated quantitative risk platforms and forecasting models for asset management firms, Prasad has more than 20 years of experience in behavioral and quantitative finance with a deep understanding of the interplay between behavioral psychology, risk, and investing. He's also a regular guest speaker at the London Business School, where he has been teaching behavioral finance and decision science as a part of the Strategic Investment Management Executive Program since 2017. Over to you, Vishal.
Thank you, Kiran. So it's an absolute delight to be awake after that lovely dream that Lovai put us through. It's wonderful to sort of see this journey culminate. This journey actually started about 11 months ago when we actually reached out to the SEBI chairperson to join us for the Aspire Summit 2023. And during the course of all of those conversations, there was a suggestion that came up that maybe we need to look at something which can actually help the investment advisory profession as well as a regulator in finding things that happen where risk profiling could actually be possibly manipulated. And it seemed like a tall ask, but like always, we've been used to tall asks. Luckily, a lot of people on the board are also very tall. So what we did is we went back to the ARYA board as we normally do. We spent time looking at who are the alternatives who could actually help develop a technology tool that can actually help with risk profiling. And basis all the inputs, we shortlisted Syntonic with their rich experience in behavioral science and their expertise, because they have so many PhDs sitting in their room that I think lots of times we don't even understand what they say. The starting point for all of this was actually to go back and look at what was really happening on risk profiling. So at ARYA, we went back and looked at all the enforcement orders passed by SEBI, specifically on the risk profiling element. And we had a leading law firm actually do that for us so that we are not missing anything which is really important as we get to developing this tool. There were some very interesting things that came out from that understanding of the enforcement orders. And I'd probably take a full day running through all of that, but I'm just going to talk about some key findings that came across in that element. One was there was risk profiling happening prior to collecting of fees, which clearly is not allowed as per regulation. The second thing we found was that the information that was getting collected was not as prescribed under the regulation, and therefore not all and a 360-degree view was being taken before giving investment advice. The third thing we found is that even though an investor may have completed a risk profile, there was no communication going back to investors saying that their risk profile has got completed. Fourthly, we found that there was a little bit of lack of client interaction during that whole process as well. And clearly risk assessment is not only about the numbers, but there's also a lot which comes out from good and rich conversations that happen around risk profiling. Of course, because Syntonic was based in North America, there was a need to customize the tool very clearly to Indian conditions. So we had to spend time getting questions Indianized, look at client reputability, look at how red flag alerts, consent, etc. can all get built in. And obviously this tool then needed to be tested in India as well, which is what we've been doing over the last few weeks. Last but not the least, it also needed to comply with Regulation 16 of the Investment Advisor Regulation, which really sets the standards of what risk profiling is about. And I'd urge anyone who's not read that regulation to go through that to see how carefully and well it has been drafted to ensure that a full persona of the investor is actually looked at before a risk profiling assessment is actually completed. Now, this is where obviously the genesis of what Prasad will talk to you about in a bit is going to start from. So over to you, Prasad. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. It's my pleasure to be with you here today, and thank you for the lovely introduction, Vishal. It is often said that one is judged by the company one keeps. If that's the case, I like to be judged today. The company cannot get any better. Thanks, Madam Chairperson, Kamala Madam, and the others for your august presence here and honoring us with your presence here today. I really appreciate it. When Arya came to us, right, with this particular project, the one thing that was very evident was we have a shared goal, we have a shared purpose. Our goal at Syntonic is to actually help the end investor make the best decisions that they can to secure their long-term financial future. And when Arya came to us with this particular project, it was kind of like love at first sight. So we knew that this was going to work. Of course, as with any romance, it went through a bit of a rocky patch with all the development sessions and discussions and everything. But I cannot overstate the amount of impact and influence Arya has had in the development of this particular tool. They spent a lot of time with us. They took us through all the key features that were needed for specifically the Indian markets. And I think we can be reasonably proud of what we have come out with, which we truly feel will help the financial advisor fulfill their fiduciary responsibilities in a more tangible purpose, in a more tangible way. I could go on and talk about this particular tool, but the Arya board very strongly felt that the video would make a better presence than me doing that here. So I'll let the video do the talking. Thank you very much for all of you being here. It's such a great day to be here, and thank you very much once again. Thank you.
Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. On average, the human brain makes thousands of decisions a day. For example, when it comes to food alone, we can make upwards of 400 plus decisions a day. Imagine we start the day with the intention of eating healthy, and at 4 p.m., we are given a choice between a healthy salad or a piping hot samosa. What would we do? We would most likely end up with the samosa. This is because our brains are hardwired to take shortcuts. And we often take such shortcuts. Without our own awareness, we can end up creating a gap between our intentions and outcomes. This happens with our financial decisions as well. At Syntonic, we have identified key non-conscious factors that influence our financial decision-making process, thus creating a gap between our intentions and outcomes. These factors can produce 3 key gaps: the investor-self gap, the advisor-investor gap, the compliance gap. Let's take investor-self gap. The investor-self gap arises because oftentimes investors act in ways that go against their own long-term interests. For instance, they are ready to spend hours watching a movie, but will be reluctant to spend 15 minutes discussing important financial topics, which can impact the next 15 years of their lives. When markets go up, they tend to be aggressive, but when markets go down, they turn conservative. Finally, Most investors and their spouses approach money or finances from different perspectives, which can lead to differences in household finances, causing a great deal of stress and hence poor decisions. Next, we have the advisor-investor gap. We all approach money and finances differently, which results in different takes on investing as well. For most advisors, risk is a well-defined quantitative value like volatility and drawdown. However, for most investors, risk is very qualitative. Hence, there is a misalignment of what risk means for advisors and their investors. Advisors assume that risk is a static number, but the reality is that risk is dynamic. It changes based on external and internal factors. Most advisors tend to approach risk through the prism of markets and returns, that is, from a single dimension, whereas true risk is multidimensional. The compliance gap. Last but not the least is the compliance gap. Generally speaking, when markets are doing well, there are not many issues between advisors and investors. However, once markets start going sideways, a variety of issues start to come up. And in most cases, there is not one single source of truth. These gaps arise for three reasons. First, a thorough and scientific analysis of the investor's risk profile is missing. Second, there is no mechanism to share risk analysis automatically and promptly with investors. And third, proper digital records of investor consent are not available or are often missing. To address these issues, Syntonic and ARIA work together to create the Risk Q solution. Risk Q is the first of its kind solution that is custom built for India, with features such as behavioral-based risk profiling, dynamic risk range, pair analysis for investors, and client consent and non-repudiability. Risk Q approaches risk profiling through 4 dimensions. Risk drivers helps understand the behavioral factors that drive one's financial decision-making and risk appetite. Risk preference reveals how one views risk and the emotional ability to handle losses. Risk capacity ascertains the financial ability to take risk. Risk need addresses the purpose behind taking risk. This results in a win-win-win situation for everyone involved: the investor, advisor, and the regulator. Advantage investor. Risk Q takes an investor-centric approach by placing them at the heart of the financial discovery and planning process. It enables them to understand how they think behaviorally when they make financial decisions. It takes investor psychology into consideration and helps them understand the dynamic nature of their risk appetite. It helps build mutual understanding between investors and their spouse or partners through a behavioral lens, thus enabling them to communicate and work together as a single team. Advantage advisor. Risk Q promotes richer conversations between advisors and investors around risk and investing, enabling them to showcase the value addition they bring to the table. It shortens the trust cycle because it improves transparency and brings about a personalized approach, truly placing the advisor on the same page with investors. It safeguards advisor interests as it helps set investor expectations around reward and risk, and also records investor consent digitally. Advantage compliance. Risk Q helps the compliance function ensure that all risk standards are met accurately through using a scientifically rigorous process. As it records key advisor-investor risk analysis digitally, a footprint is always available to detect anomalies, hence allowing for an audit trail. It protects investor interests and promotes taking a more disciplined approach to investing. The Risk Q tool from Syntonic, enhanced by inputs provided by ARIA, is born from the synergy between ARIA and Syntonic. It represents a profound commitment to investor interests that is specifically tailored for Indian financial advisors and their clients. This is our shared journey with you all toward a more informed, transparent, and secure financial advisory landscape.
Thank you, Vishal and Prasad, for sharing your insights earlier. I would now request SEBI Chairperson, Madam Butch, to please come on stage for the official inauguration of the Risk Queue tool by Syntonic. I would request Prasad and Vishal to please accompany her.